Lovely to be here as we think about this question, life goals, will I ever feel I've made it? I was reading the Times recently and came across a letter which said this: "Sir, I was assisting my 16-year-old daughter with her homework when she received a text from Mum which read, 'What do you want from life?' This was an unexpected and profound question for an exam-sitting teenager. We debated various answers: wealth, fulfillment, love, all three. 5 minutes later, she received a second message blaming predictive text for correcting the word little." Now, it may be that what you want from life can actually be bought at little, but I suspect that love, fulfillment, and wealth are probably closer to the mark. All of us have life goals, don't we? Things we want to achieve, and I take it that this term brings some of those more sharply into focus. With exams around the corner, I guess, for many of us, or maybe an internship in the summer, a job when you graduate, whatever it is, all of us are looking for success, looking to achieve life goals in different fields: sport, academics, music, business. And there are lots of reasons why we want to achieve life goals, but one of them, I think, is that feeling of having made it. You know, the feeling that the idea of making it promises something to us, doesn't it? It promises that we'll be satisfied. It promises that we'll feel significant, that we'll feel and be secure. Just think about it. You don't only want to get a first-class degree for the joy of writing a great academic essay, do you? You want a first because that says something about the kind of person you are. You're a first-class person. You don't only want to get into the first cricket team because you love playing cricket, although that's part of it, but because you want to be a Blue. So we want to achieve our goals because we love that feeling of making it, that feeling of significance and satisfaction. And yet there's a paradox, I think, in our experience here. We long to achieve, we long to make it, and yet, perhaps you've noticed this, even those times when we do achieve our life goals, it's almost as if something slips through our fingers, and those feelings of making it, that satisfaction and significance, seem to just ebb away a little bit. I mean, just think back to the day you found out you were coming to Cambridge. Cambridge is one of 2 universities in the country where there's a 0% disappointment rate on results day. You just think back to that day. I'm sure you can remember it well, whether it was an email in the inbox or a letter through the door, or you went into school to find your exam results, and there's that feeling of joy and jubilation and exhilaration as you find out you've made it. And yet, almost in that same moment, new feelings come along, new questions, new horizons emerge. Will I fit in? Will I make friends? Will I cope academically? Sometimes in the Guardian, they publish articles that are written anonymously. There was one written recently by an anonymous Oxford student, and they wrote this: "When I tell people I go to Oxford University, they look at me with admiration. 'Wow, that's fantastic,' they say. 'You must have the best time there. There's not much else to do but smile and agree.' You know that for most people this is an incredible achievement, but that can't overcome the feeling of dread you feel at the start of every term. People say I must be really clever, but most of the time I feel incredibly stupid. At school I was the best at my subject, one of 10 from my year to get into Oxbridge. But here I am decidedly subpar. I spend my time desperately trying to complete my work, only to get it back full of corrections in red, or with no comments at all. We've made it. We're significant, we're satisfied, we're secure, and yet we've still got to make it. It's a bit like when you go walking in the hills. The last few summers I've been to the Lake District, and you climb these enormous hills, and you see the summit just ahead of you, and you kind of gather the people you're with, and you put on one last spurt of energy to get to the top, and you get there, and you know what happens. It's not the top after all, is it? There's another summit beyond, and another beyond that. That's kind of our experience in this area as well. And this isn't just an Oxbridge thing. This is at the heart of our experience as human beings. Elizabeth Gilbert wrote the book Eat, Pray, Love. You might have read it or seen the film. In it, she describes the human condition as the heartbreaking inability to sustain contentment. And so the question comes, the question that's been asked from time immemorial: is there anywhere that we can be fulfilled? Is there anywhere that will quench our thirst, that will bring us satisfaction? Will we ever feel the satisfaction of making it? Now, I recognise that for many of us, Christianity might be the very last place we'd think of looking for an answer to that question. Christopher Hitchens, the great atheist who died a few years ago, wrote this. He said, "An atheist might very well say that he wished the existence of God were true. I say I'm an anti-theist, because I think it'd be rather awful if it was true. You'd never have a waking or sleeping moment where you weren't being watched and controlled and supervised by some celestial entity. It'd be like living in North Korea." It's a brilliant quote. He was a brilliant writer. But I wonder, maybe that's how you see God, someone who would supervise you and control you and diminish life and take instead of give. Well, what I'd love to do today is look at a story from Jesus' life, which I think paints a very different picture of God. And we'll see how that interacts with our question. So if you would, I'd love it if you'd pick up these little booklets on your table called Uncover, and turn with me to page 18. This is simply one of the 4 gospel accounts of Jesus' life. This is John's gospel, an eyewitness account that we find in the Bible. And I'd love to read some of it to you. If you see the big number 4 in bold, and then just beneath that, the paragraph down from that, the little number 4, verse 4, I'm going to read from there. Now he, that's Jesus, had to go through Samaria. So he came to a town in Samaria called Sychar, near the plot of ground Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired as he was from the journey, sat down by the well. It was about noon. When a Samaritan woman came to draw water, Jesus said to her, "Will you give me a drink?" His disciples had gone into the town to buy food. The Samaritan woman said to him, "You are a Jew, and I am a Samaritan woman. How can you ask me for a drink?" For Jews do not associate with Samaritans. We'll pick it up in just a moment, but we'll pause there just to notice a couple of things in passing. The story is as follows. Jesus is on a journey. He's hungry, he's thirsty, he's tired, it's hot. And so they get to this town, and his disciples go off to buy some food, and he heads to the town square to get a drink. And there he bumps into the Samaritan woman. Now, from our perspective, this just seems like an everyday encounter. But to get this story, we need to know that actually this is quite scandalous. You get a hint of it in verse 9, where it says that Jews do not associate with Samaritans. Samaritans were people with Jewish heritage, but they'd intermarried with some of the surrounding nations. And so Jews looked down on them as racially and religiously inferior. There was a Jewish saying of the time: if you're walking down the street and a Samaritan's coming towards you, it's better to end up in the ditch than to allow even your shadows to touch. So Jews looked down on them. This is a very surprising encounter. And yet there's more, because Jesus is a religious man, and this is a woman by herself. And again, that would have been a very unusual, very controversial encounter in the culture of the time. Actually, we see in verse 6 another little detail that's worth noticing, which is that it's about noon. Often, people would have needed to draw water for all their tasks, their cooking, their washing, that kind of thing. But usually you'd do that in the cool of the day, at the start of the day. And often the women would come in a group and do that together. And yet here we see this woman in the middle of the day, in the heat of the day, by herself. And scholars have pointed to this detail and said this tells us something about her. That actually she's an outcast from her own society. She's looked down on. Later we find out that's because people would have considered her morally inferior. And so the Jews look down on the Samaritans. The Samaritans even look down on this woman. She's the lowest of the low. And yet Jesus talks to her. He treats her with dignity and respect as a human being made in God's image. And it's just worth noticing that this is such a scandalous encounter. No one would have made this up. If you were making up a story about a religious leader or trying to persuade people to follow Jesus, you wouldn't put him in such a compromising situation. And so actually this gives us confidence that we can trust this account as being historically accurate. But let's read on and we'll get into the meat of their conversation. So from verse 10, just at the bottom of that page. Jesus answered her, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is that asks you for a drink, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water." "Sir," the woman said, "you have nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. Where can you get this living water? Are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave us the well and drank from it himself, as did also his sons and his livestock?" Jesus answered, "Everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again. But whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give them will become in them a spring of water, welling up to eternal life." The woman said to him, "Sir, give me this water, so that I won't get thirsty and have to keep coming here to draw water." Now, this conversation is happening at two levels. At one level, Jesus is asking her for a drink, but at a deeper level, he's offering her a drink. You see that in verse 14. "Whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst," Jesus says. You see, what he's saying to this woman is that he has something that can satisfy her spiritual thirst forever. He says it wells up to eternal life, that nothing can take that away, that it'll last even through death. And so we think back to our original question, is there anywhere that we can be satisfied? All those things we search for when we're trying to make it in life. Is there anywhere that those things can actually be found? The claim of Jesus Christ that we're thinking about today is, yes, there is a place. Those things can be found in relationship with me, he says. See, far from Christopher Hitchens' conception of God as a divine traffic cop, here we see someone who treats people with respect and offers them a relationship that satisfies. And so actually I think we could turn Hitchens' perspective round. Far from it being awful if God did exist, might it be awful if he didn't? See, if you think about it, a world without God, we have to say that there is no ultimate meaning or significance to our experiences of satisfaction. But if what Jesus is claiming is true, then those desires, those experiences are real. And actually there is a place where they can be met. Now perhaps you're thinking, well, that's fine for people who struggle. But that's not me. I'm satisfied. I'm fine as I am. I think as a student it's easy to believe that satisfaction is just around the corner. You've got your life ahead of you. Everybody worships. The only choice we get is what to worship. And he goes on to talk about money and beauty and power and some of the life goals that we've been thinking about today. By worship, he simply means this quest to make it. He's observed, as we've been thinking ourselves, how human beings are always searching after things and yet so rarely satisfied. And he says later on in the speech, he observes that often we experience the constant gnawing sense of having had and lost some infinite thing. To my knowledge, Foster Wallace isn't a Christian, wasn't a Christian. But actually what he says tallies very well with the Christian perspective. Christians believe that we were made in God's image to know him. And that in that relationship we're given all those things we want in our quest to make it. We're given satisfaction, significance, security. And yet instead of worshipping the Creator, what we humans tend to do is live for the things we've made, he's made. Those gifts he gives us, such as relationships and beauty and power. And we try and earn those things through achieving in those arenas. See, here's the thing. Those gifts are good things, but they're not big enough. They're only gifts. And Christians believe we were made to know the giver. Let me give you a couple of illustrations just to help you understand what I'm trying to say. It's a bit like when you go into a posh supermarket. You know sometimes they have tasters. You can always tell a posh supermarket because of their essentials range on those things. You go to Tesco, there's essentials baked beans. You go to Waitrose, there's essentials rose-scented ironing water. I didn't even think ironing was essential, let alone ironing water. But there you go. You go into this kind of a place, and the tasters are there. A tiny little cup of water, of wine rather, with half a mouthful, or a little piece of bruschetta with something nice on it. And you take the tasters, and you expect that to satisfy you. Well, of course, it's not going to. They're designed to point beyond themselves. They're designed to point to a banquet, something that really will. Or an image that we find in the Old Testament is is if you imagine it's a hot summer's day and you've been out exercising and you come back and you're thirsty and you're tired and you're sweaty and you go to the fridge and you pull out a glass of cold water. And the Old Testament says that's a bit like what knowing God's like. Fresh, spring, cool water that refreshes us. But it's as if we've dropped that glass of water and it's smashed, and instead we try and slake our thirst by drinking the muddy puddle that's formed. See, what Jesus is trying to say here is that as long as we're pursuing the gifts, but not the giver, we'll never feel that we've made it. We'll never be satisfied. And here Jesus invites us to turn back to him. See that in verse 14. He says, "Whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give them will become in them a spring of water, welling up to eternal life." And so the claim is that Christianity offers us a quality of satisfaction unlike anything you've ever experienced. Because it's satisfaction not in gifts, but satisfaction in knowing the giver. C.S. Lewis was an academic here at Cambridge, and he said this. He said, "What would it be to taste at the fountainhead, that stream of which even these lower reaches prove so intoxicating? Yet that, I believe, is what lies before us. The whole man is to drink joy from the fountain of joy." You might come back, but what if I'm happy? What if I'm satisfied? But what if your capacity for joy was actually larger than you realised? Again, Lewis puts it like this. He says, "We're half-hearted creatures, fooling around with drink and sex and ambition when infinite joy is offered us. We're far too easily pleased." And Jesus' claim is that this wells up to eternal life. So it's not only a quality of satisfaction that's different, but also a quantity. This is a satisfaction not dependent on our exam results, on our circumstances, on our health, on our success, even on our life. Now, I realise we haven't talked a huge amount about the truth question. You can ask me about that afterwards. But Christians will say at the heart of why we're persuaded this is true is Jesus' death and resurrection. If you read on in John's Gospel, Jesus dies. I take it that's not a spoiler for anyone. The Christian faith will understand it as follows. Because we've turned away, because we've rejected the giver of life and satisfaction, there are consequences. Our thirst now, and one day, death. But on the cross, Christians believe that Jesus bore those consequences. He dies. And as he's dying, he cries out, "I am thirsty." And Christians believe 3 days later he rose again. That's what we've just been celebrating at Easter. And he rises again to usher in a world of perfect satisfaction, where our thirst will be quenched and our longings fulfilled. Christians have a real sense of that now in this world, even though it's partial, and then one day it will be complete. I'd love you to read the rest of this chapter. We don't have time now, but you'll find that the woman's thirst is quenched. She accepts Jesus' offer, and Jesus invites us to do the same. Now, for some of us, that'll be a completely crazy idea. This will be very new. If that's you, I'd love you to take this book away and maybe say to the person who brought you, "Why don't we look through it together? Why don't we read more about this together?" For others of you, perhaps you've been thinking about this a little more seriously. If that's you, I'd love to chat to you afterwards, love to meet you afterwards. But as we close, in the last 2 minutes, I just want us to think, what does this mean for our life goals? See, does the Christian perspective mean that then we have to abandon our life goals, that they don't matter anymore? And the answer is no, not necessarily. Christians have life goals. Christians want to make a difference in the world. But this does change our approach to those things. You see, if our sense of significance and security and satisfaction depends on us making it in life, then our life goals stop being a pleasure to pursue and instead become a burden, become a master. To fail at them would crush us. Stephen Fry wrote this about his first few weeks at Cambridge. He said, "I lived in quivering dread of being at any moment found out. The terror that gripped me during those first few weeks at Cambridge was all about my intellectual right to be there." You can hear his fear of not making it there. But as I said, because Christians believe we've been given those things, given satisfaction, significance, and security freely, it
It means we don't need to earn them through achievements and through making it, which just means that failure hurts a little less. Hopefully it means that we need to prove ourselves a little less, that desire subsides a bit. And instead we're free to pursue life goals, pursue making a difference in the world for, we believe, God's glory and other people's good as well. There's someone I know in Oxford who's a Christian, and she rode a boat race a couple of years ago. And she wrote this about her experiences. She said, "Of course, I wanted my seat in the boat and was upset when a training session went bad. But I knew that my life needn't be dictated by my success or own, but rather by Jesus' triumphing death on the cross that secured my eternal future. My motivation to perform switched from proving myself to using the gifts God had so generously given me to honour Him. Knowing God was in control and wanted what was best for me meant a huge burden was lifted off my shoulders." So will we ever feel that we've made it? Well, the Christian claim is that those things we desire in making it, significant, security, satisfaction, that those things are actually given to us as we come to know God through Jesus Christ, as we have a relationship with Him. And that frees us to pursue making a difference in the world. Thank you so much for listening. What we're going to do now is just turn in tables, 2s, 3s, if you're sitting over there, and I'll give you a couple of questions that you can discuss about if you'd like. Feel free equally to talk about other things that have struck you or questions that you have. And then in a moment, V will pop up and tell us what's going to happen next. So here are some questions if it's helpful for your discussion. You can talk about the following. What would you say your life goals are? Number 2, do you think being truly satisfied is out there? Number 3, what do you make of the Christian diagnosis of our thirst? And number 4, what do you make of Jesus' claim to offer satisfaction? You can start with any of those, or others if you'd prefer. So over to you, and then V will come up in a moment.
We're going to have the time for questions now. We've had some texted in, but if any of you would like to ask questions from the floor, there'll be a mic going round. So if anyone wants to put a hand up now, we can start off with someone from the floor. If not, we can go with yeah, go for it. So just wait a second for the mic. Stephen, have you got? It's over here.
I'll be right there. I'll stay seated. Yeah, I guess just to start with, I feel like I've just fallen out of the river and just walked in this space, which is beautiful. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Go to the question that's been texted in. So, isn't it a good thing to be unsatisfied because it stops us being lazy and pushes us forward?
Yeah, I think there's an element of truth in that. I guess a desire to make a difference can have lots of good benefits, and yet at the same time, I don't think any of us want to be permanently unsatisfied. I think what the Christian perspective does is hopefully holds those in tension, because it says that in our relationship with God, we're given those things that are our heart's deepest desires: satisfaction, security, significance, as I've been saying. And yet that doesn't put an end to all effort and work and striving. The Bible talks about what often is called heaven, the new creation, as a place where those things are fulfilled, and yet it's also a place very much like this world with a huge amount of potential in it. And so being satisfied doesn't mean that we can't still strive for potential, strive to use our gifts and talents to make the world a better place or to bless others. But what it does mean is that our achievements don't, or our sense of significance don't depend on those achievements. And so we can still strive, But it's not that kind of restless striving where there's a need to achieve. The satisfaction is given first, and then that frees us to bless others, to serve others.
So, Adam and Eve weren't truly satisfied
Thank you, yeah. I suppose the Christian's experience is this satisfaction that I've been talking about is given to us in two parts, if you like. It's real, it's a genuine satisfaction. I hope if you talk to your Christian friends, you'll find that that's what they say. I'm sure it is. I'm sure they will say that. But that doesn't mean that there aren't. That doesn't force us to continue going the way of Jesus Christ, of accepting that offer, of continuing to find our satisfaction in Him. There's still an element of choice. We still can wake up each day and either walk with Him or not. I think that was probably Adam and Eve's experience as well. It was real, but they still made a choice to turn away from that. They were persuaded, I guess, in that moment that satisfaction could truly be found in the creation rather than in the Creator. I guess what I've been trying to say is, I think the way we see the Bible unfold, the way we see history unfold, is that was probably a bad choice, and that actually it is only in the Creator that we truly find those things. Yeah, thanks. So just what I started saying when it hinted at in my talk, there is this kind of two-part giving of satisfaction. The first part happens now as we come to know Jesus. As I was saying, I hope if you chat to your Christian friends, that will be their testimony, that will be their story. And yet we live in a world that's full of suffering, that's complicated, that's broken. And so obviously that's going to have a huge effect. It'll buffet and test that satisfaction. But Christians believe the resurrection of Jesus guarantees that one day this world will be totally fixed. It's the down payment of that promise. And on that day, that satisfaction will be complete. It's worth saying that because this satisfaction is located in God, it's located outside this world, that actually even those things that do buffet our experience of it now can actually also deepen our experience of it. So if your satisfaction is based upon, say, sporting ability, then injury would be crippling to it. But if it's based in God, you might still love your sport, and so an injury will be painful, probably in many senses of the word. But it won't necessarily destroy your satisfaction. In fact, actually, it might give you an opportunity to locate it even more strongly in the Creator rather than in His creation.
Thank you so much. I'm afraid that's all we've got time for. So thank you so much, Ali. Please don't rush away if you don't need to. We'd love for you to stay. There'll be snacks coming out onto tables, so please keep those conversations going. Ali will also be here and he'd love to chat more, so do grab him at the end. And Ali mentioned these accounts of Jesus' life. These are written by John, who is a friend of Jesus. We would really, really love for you to take them away. They're free for you to take. And it's a great way of looking into the claims of Jesus, who He is. So please do read that for yourself. On your tables, you also find a flyer for the rest of the big questions this term. We'd love you to join us for the next 3 weeks. Well, this week and then 3 more. Also on your tables is a feedback card. It'd be great to know what you've enjoyed, what's not been so great, and also if you'd like to chat more about this or any other question, just tick in the box "I'm interested" and someone from the Christian Union will get in touch with you. As you leave, there's some books at the back that will help you think more about this and other questions. They're also free for you to take away. We'd love for them to be useful to you. Great, thanks so much again for coming.